Finally today, Dave Deacon takes a look at a challenge many livestock producers are facing.
Animals really need two things to live. And during a drought, you may see the dried forage and wonder what the livestock will eat. But you also have to remember that cattle do drink a lot of water.
The rule of thumb is you can just think 5, 6, 7, 8. A 500-pound steer or heifer requires about 5 gallons a day in the winter time. 750-pound steer, about 6 gallons. A 1,100-pound dry cow, about 7 gallons. And then a 1,100-pound lactating cow requires around 8 gallons. And then when it gets to summertime and the temperature gets up around 90 degrees and above, they require more than twice that amount.
Multiply those numbers by even a small herd of 20 or 30 cattle, and a small pond starts to look even smaller. But the problem is not volume alone.
You know, as the depth of the water declines and the cattle are walking into the pond to drink, you know, they're probably stirring up the sediment there. And so, you know, I guess my rule of thumb is that if the water looks really bad and smells really bad, it's probably already to the point where the cattle have reduced their consumption of water.
And that's why Lalman suggests a water quality test.
Most of the commercial and the university laboratories can do a water quality test for a minimal fee. Most water quality tests are going to report the total soluble salts, which is just an indication of the dissolved minerals in the water. And you'd like for that to be under 1,000 milligrams per liter for livestock, for them to, you know, maintain consumption and also to stay healthy. When you get around 3,000 milligrams per liter, you could start to see some health issues and perhaps some toxicity issues.
The quality of water is just one thing to think of.
The physical aspect is one we probably haven't considered enough, because if you see mud up around the hocks and above, you know, the belly, the udder, the brisket, the animals are really having to struggle to get to water, and it's probably past time to move them to a different water source. If you don't have an alternative and the water supply continues to shrink, it's probably better to do something, even if that means marketing the animals sooner rather than later.
Of course, the ponds are not just about livestock. They are important to wildlife and fish as well.
Fish don't need 10 feet of water. They don't even need 5 feet of water, but they do need good quality water. Fish can survive in a few feet of good quality water. We begin to be worried when we see that the pond is choked with aquatic vegetation, or we have an excessive amount of algae in the pond, making it a very dense green color. Those things can lead to low oxygen problems that can kill a fish population.
Extension aquacultural specialist Marley Beem tells us there isn't much we can do to change the pond's fate, but there may be opportunities still.
Generally in Oklahoma, we just have to live through these drought periods and see if there isn't some kind of silver lining that goes along with it. Perhaps this is the opportunity that you need to totally eliminate a nuisance fish population with carp or something else that's undesirable. Let the pond dry out, let the bottom crack, and when the drought is over, restock it with bass and bluegill and channel catfish, as the fisheries biologists recommend.
And maybe even time to reshape that pond.
If you can restore some storage volume capacity to the pond, and it's affordable to do so, it's probably a good idea, but I always steer people towards the Natural Resource Conservation Service to get their input. They're the local experts on costs and soils and all those factors.
Long term, I think it's a wonderful idea to fence ponds and put a frost-free tank and a water line through the dam so that the cattle aren't, you know, tramping out through the pond in the heat of the summer trying to cool off and defecating in the pond and so on, reducing water quality.
So while we wait for even more rain, we can be planning for the future. For Sunup, I'm Dave Deacon.